All right. Anyway, happy Halloween. Happy Samhain. Hopefully, with the veil being thin, everyone will have much better reception and clarity from their ancestors. Yes, I'm smoking. Planning on quitting this winter. Working up to it, but messages. Hmm. Speaking of messages, so funny little anecdote I'll start with. Um, the other day, I had to go and take my mom. Come on, car. Quit acting up. Go and take my mom shopping or whatever. And, I talked to her on the phone, and I was like, all right, it's, such and such time. I'm going to leave in about 10 minutes. It's going to take me like half hour to get there or whatever. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to go outside and smoke. Now, mind you, it was like 40 degrees out. It was a pretty chilly day. And I'm like, well, don't sit outside and wait for me the whole time. Okay. Sure enough, she sat outside and waited for me the whole time. I was like, so I get there. She says she's on this one bench. I only know of one area where they smoke. She's not there. Turns out she's at this other area. I'm like, okay, whatever. I finally find her. She's got to go back inside to get her purse. So she's going in the building. And I'm like, Mom, why don't you just listen? I'm not telling you this stuff because I'm trying to control you. I told you that because I don't want you sitting outside in the cold for 40 minutes or possibly longer. She goes in. So I get in the car. I'm rubbing my head. I'm like, okay. And I literally said in my head, I was like, oh God. I'm like, this is so frustrating. I'm like, why does she just not listen? And what I distinctly heard, plain as day, was, huh, now you know how I feel. And I just started laughing. I was like, touche. I can't, you know? So, yeah. So hopefully you get the same clarity that I get sometimes. Although me being the person I am and my stubbornness, usually they don't come through, messages and stuff don't come through quite that clearly or succinct. I normally got to get a sledgehammer to the face. So um, there's that. Um, Recently had some comments from who was First Seat 1144. I think that was her name. Um, Great channel, interesting content. We've had a couple exchanges in our comments. They asked me to talk about, we didn't get into specifics or details, but the gist and the context I got out of it was about how people can be hypocritical and very judgmental. Righteous indignation is the word that comes to mind. Words, excuse me. Words. Um, she talks a lot about that. Power of the spoken word. I'll start with that. Power of the spoken word. What gives word power? You. Usually not just you, but your emotion or your emotional reaction, which is literally that. Emotion is energy in motion. And that's why I say all the time, if you emotionally react to a situation or a person or place, a thing, you're giving it power. One of my favorite exercises to do when I do groups with guys in sober houses and other areas and whatnot is I like to do the exercise of uncomfortable silence. I usually wear a watch with a second hand, and I'll say, okay, we're going to start. and I'll just look at my watch, or I'll set a timer on my phone. About 30 seconds is usually what I set it for. And I don't say a word, and I just sit there. And the whole reason, and I've done videos on this before, is most people last maybe 10 seconds before they're, other than the usual response of, okay, what is he doing? Before they start trying to distract themselves with their phones, they start getting nervous, they start getting anxious. I've even had people pretty much spiral in about 15 seconds and think that they had done something wrong, because I'll make eye contact with all the individuals in the room at the time. And the point is this: every single person who has an emotional reaction to that situation and is uncomfortable has now given me their power. I have complete control over every single person in that room and essentially their reality. And I did nothing. I sat there. I didn't say a word. I didn't do any provocative actions. I was just present. So even silence can have power. It's up to the individual in that situation as to how much power it has, you know. A lot of people balk at this concept. They don't like it. People don't like it when you point out that they're being controlled. It shatters an illusion, makes them look at a hard truth. I find people to be hypocritical, and I'm guilty, like I said many, many times. I try to only speak on things that I personally have experience with, and yes, I am guilty of being a hypocrite. Um, Vigorously. um, Most people display hypocrisy and hypocritical behavior um, in a sense that people are mirrors. You know, um, the things you like and dislike in someone are the same things you like and dislike in yourself, for the most part. Not every single thing. Um, Ironically, this is a function of ego and the self-validating nature of the subconscious. You're going to recognize behaviors and whatnot that your belief system, which is ingrained in your subconscious, um, wants to validate. That's the weird thing about the subconscious mind, that I've discovered, is that it does require essentially constant reinforcement, um, but that's also the advantage. It's very malleable. You can reprogram it with purpose and intention quite easily once you start to recognize certain things and certain patterns and behaviors in your life and things you know. Here's a great example. Um, I try to be very conscious of, I live in a sober house with 26, 27 other people. I'm one of the very few people who's very self-aware of what I do and how I do it and whether or not I'm disturbing someone else. And I try to be very conscious of this, um, like in the morning when I get up for work, because I'm one of the first people to get up because I work at a golf course. I'm up very, very early. Um, Most of these guys don't even. I'm usually up, ready, and out the door, and have been at work an hour before they even wake up to piss. But I've yet never once have I heard someone complain about me waking them up in the morning. You know, I'm very conscious about disturbing other people. I use the flashlight on my phone to get dressed by. I'll take all of my stuff and go into the bathroom, you know, and finish getting ready there, where I'm not going to be disturbing people. One of the things that irritates the hell out of me is when other people display essentially thoughtlessness and don't take other people into consideration. There are one or two individuals in the room I'm in who have a really bad habit of when they get up, they act like nobody else is there, and they'll turn the light on and it'll start making noise, and they're doing all kinds of other stuff, waking all of us up. And it's like, are you really that inconsiderate? And when you point it out to them, of course, they're very apologetic and they feel bad, but that's the point. They don't even think about it. They didn't make it past this. They're so self-centered and so self-absorbed that they're not thinking about anyone else in the moment. So the things that I dislike in people are when they show a lack of consideration for other people. Why? Because I have been like that in my past, and I have tried to change and correct that behavior. But I still recognize that behavior, and it still drives me nuts. At the same time, I recognize when people do take other people into consideration, and I love it because that's how I try to be now. That's what I mean by people are mirrors. So a lot of times when people show hypocrisy, for example, leaving negative comments on a post, which I always find laughable. Cool. It's like a lot of celebrities and stuff say there's no such thing as bad press. Thanks. Regardless of what your intention is, you just fed the algorithm. Cool. I'll take it. Um, this particular person had also wanted me to talk about things like that, like essentially people who will watch your content to try to use it against you. I've had different incidents of not as many negative comments as you'd think, but I've had people report me for all kinds of dumb stuff, profanity, misinformation, misrepresentation, talking about drugs and alcohol. Um, I've been shadow banned. I've gotten copyright flagged because I happen to have a radio on one time. Like it's it's funny. It's frustrating. Absolutely. It's also the reason that, for example, a lot of my videos I set for not for children. Um, it is less restrictive on certain things, such as the content itself. Um, it's also why I don't use hashtags and do any kind of search engine optimization. Um, I'm a very firm believer in the basically word of mouth advertising. If you get something out of my videos and you think somebody else would, point it out to them. I didn't start making these videos or this content to get a million followers and monetize and all this sort of stuff. If it happens, great, wonderful. I'll deal with it as best I can. Has it? No. Am I trying to make it happen? No. I'm just trying to speak my truth, my authenticity, tell you about my journey, how I healed, how I overcame some difficulties in my life. And I trust me when I tell you, you guys have only gotten a very, very small percentage of the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of things I won't discuss on this platform for multiple different reasons. One, because I don't feel like going through the hassle of being harassed. Two, it's just not necessarily an appropriate platform. At some point I may start some kind of, Patreon or something else, a member exclusive. And if you do want to hear some more gory details, sure, you can find it there, where I'm not going to get threatened by my freedom of speech because somebody else took offense to something I said. Eh, which they're entitled. Everyone is entitled to speak their opinion. I'm not discrediting or discounting that by any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, if I kind of look at it as, I think it was Cat Williams said, if you don't have five haters by summer, you're doing something wrong. And it's true, unfortunately. It really is. Um, Not everyone's going to agree with me or my content. I don't expect them to. I don't want them to, actually. Um, Actually, it's probably more beneficial and more therapeutic if you don't agree with it initially. Maybe it makes you think, ask a few deeper questions, question your beliefs that you were force fed or spoon fed. Unfortunately, we don't have much control over what YouTube as a corporation flags or doesn't flag. That's another reason I don't use hashtags and a lot of other things. Is it makes it not harder, but it doesn't necessarily push my content to the forefront of their search engines. It also means that I have less people looking at it, but the message still gets out there. So, um, but the point to a lot of that was that I find most people who disagree with stuff that I say, um, it's usually they disagree with because it threatens a particular belief or an illusion, I should say. It threatens an illusion that they've held on to very dearly. As the saying goes, my light irritates their demons. Yeah. Like I was saying a message I sent my sister the other night. You know what? If my authenticity and my intensity irritate and threaten you, there's probably a reason. Maybe it's time to get rid of the demons. Which is actually funny. To get rid of the demons or do the shadow work, a lot of people think it's about literally forcing them. No. You have to love them. To truly integrate the shadow self, you have to love it. You have to embrace it. You have to allow it to integrate. Because that's when it has purpose. And once it has purpose and it knows its place, it no longer demands your attention. How does it demand your attention? By the things you end up paying attention to. It's just another part of the psyche. It's just another part of the subconscious. Now, of course, there are, and I'll do this in separate videos. We'll get into the whole actual external entity kind of thing because there's that too, and that requires a certain level of willingness. And I'll talk about that in my spiritual warfare videos. But those demons, as some say, the shadow self. Once you let it know that it is not bad, it is loved, and it does have its place and its purpose when necessary. It's no longer going to demand to always be in the light. Yes, is a good way to put it. There are other ways to do it too. Certain things you can literally just starve out, but we'll talk about that some other time. So, so messages, words. The other thing about the power of the spoken word is it is a form of manifestation. So is prayer, by the way. There's the power of the written word, power of the spoken word, and of course, just the power of thought. The cool thing about the power of the written word is, yes, it is a form of manifestation in the aspect that you're taking a thought, an idea, you're imbuing it with emotion and energy, and you're physically speaking it into the world. You're physically creating a vibration. It's a form of instant manifestation. It carries a certain level of weight with it. Um, but what it really carries is it carries the emotion through tone and inflection, and it also carries an idea, seed that can then be planted. Or if there's fertile ground around, it will automatically germinate. That's also its greatest disadvantage because it is a form of instant manifestation. It can't be taken back. Our written word is very similar. The only difference is it's not necessarily instant manifestation. The planting and germination of the seed is delayed. It's put out there, but only when the right opportunity comes along does the seed get planted and germinate. It's more like part of the spoken word is more like a dandelion seed, and part of the spoken word is more like an acorn. Acorn will sit for years until it gets a proper amount of darkness and moisture, and then it'll germinate. Funny enough, that's how a lot of trees actually get planted. Squirrels burying acorns and forgetting where they buried them. Ironic, actually. Oh, speaking of which, science. So we have a pair of eagles on the course, and today I saw the female fly by with a snake. Very auspicious sign, especially this time of year. Eagles are weeding out the snakes. Hmm. And a couple of minutes after that, the male actually flew about 10 feet right in front of me, like literally eye level, looked right at me. Beautiful. God, he's gorgeous. And then later in the day, um, we have a pair of hawks that have come back to the course now. And I got to see the one hawk with these big tall grass plants that we had to cut down in the fall. They were cutting them down, and as soon as we got out of the way, he came down twice, trying to catch moles and shit. Beautiful red tail, gorgeous. I'm hoping to get some more tail feathers. I've got one up here somewhere. Oh, yeah. Actually, I don't know where that tail feather went. I hope it's still in here. I have to look. I've got a couple Coopers, a couple red tails. So, yeah, science. It's not often what you say, but how you say it. It's a very tough lesson for me to learn in my life. And just know that, when somebody has an adverse reaction to something you're saying or your truth that you're speaking, it's usually because it threatens one of their illusions. Not always, but usually. Yes, it is a form of an attack. But it's also a reflection of their character and where they're at, not necessarily your worth or your value. It's been a very hard lesson for me to learn, and it's hard to maintain. It really is. It's hard to take certain things. It's not a form of personal rejection or whatnot. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have much else. Happy Halloween.